You're listening to All Things Sports with Mike Davis.
Hey, what is going on, everybody? Glad you can be here on another podcast of All Things Sports with Mike Davis. I thank you for including my podcast into your day. If you're listening on Spotify, be sure to follow the podcast. If you're on the YouTube side of things, go ahead and subscribe, comment, like, all that good stuff. Make sure you also go to the social media links in the description box to get in contact with the show for any comments or any suggestions. I won't take up much more of your time. Let's get into it. So this should be a welcome back podcast. It's been a while. And, sometimes you need to take that mental health break. I do understand that, being that I work every day, and sometimes, you need to take a break from some things that you're doing. And I took a very long extended break from the podcast, but I'm back. I do enjoy doing the podcast, but I did need to take a break, and there, my voice cracking like I'm a teenager going through puberty, but I needed to take a break, but I'm back nonetheless. Also before this, just 2 weeks ago, I was really down bad. I was sick with food poisoning, and let me say, I would never wish food poisoning on anybody ever. One of the worst things. Now, I've heard stories from my mom saying I've had food poisoning growing up before. I don't remember it, but the food poisoning I just had 2 weeks ago, no go. No go. So, yeah, I wouldn't wish that on anybody, but I was down bad. I ended up going to the ER just to make sure it was food poisoning. I had never felt that kind of pain in my life. I'm glad it's over and done with. All right, so before I also get into the podcast, I wanted to talk about, just for a brief second, I was online just cruising the internet, as I do sometimes, and I saw some high school basketball highlights, and in these highlights there were two guys that are hated on most times. It doesn't matter what they're doing. Either they're being hated on or they're not given any props for or recognition for what they've done in their career. And the two people I'm talking about is former rapper, because I don't think he raps anymore, but businessman slash entrepreneur Master P and NBA basketball player LeBron James. I saw them in a video, which I thought was kind of neat. The two were sitting next to each other, discussing whatever it was they were discussing. LeBron James' son was playing against Master P's son and Master P's nephew. They were on the same team. Master P's son and nephew were on the same team, that is. For those of you that know the rapper Silk the Shocker's son. Look, I'm not the biggest LeBron James fan on or off the court, but I must say I do respect some of the things he does off the court. Some of the things, not all of it. Not all of it. And it's the same on the court. Look, the guy's a beast. Look, he's going to go down as one of the best basketball players of all time. He has some antics to himself that I don't really care for. The flopping thing, some other stuff I'm not going to get into. And same off the floor. He's into some things I'm not really into. I'm not going to discuss it. But I do give him props for some of the things he does do off the floor, like opening up the charter school in his home state of Ohio. I definitely respect that. And, one thing about LeBron, I can't say this. LeBron puts his money where his mouth is. So it is what it is. Same thing with Master P. The guy puts his money where his mouth is. Now, I respect Master P all around guy. I grew up listening to Master P, and Master P, what he has done with his life and what he has done with his sons, putting them in a position to be able to be men. I believe his son is that's heading into college now, later this year. I believe he just got him like a $1 million or $2 million deal. I'm not sure what the deal is, but remember, college kids can now earn money off their own likeness, and Master P helped his son with that. So kudos to him. Kudos to both those guys. I just thought it was neat seeing them in a picture together. A guy I grew up listening and watching, Master P, and he had a couple of preseason stints in the NBA with the Raptors and the Hornets. So kudos to those guys. Look, let's get into the show. Got a great show for you today. I wanted to, and this happened a couple of days ago, but I wanted to touch on the situation with the U.S. men's basketball team. Now, by now, you should know that, France beat them 83-76, in the Tokyo Olympics this past Sunday. Now, looking at that, I had no idea they had a 25-game Olympic winning streak that went all the way back to 2004. And I saw a crazy stat where I believe Kobe hadn't lost in the Olympics. I could be wrong, but I think that's what I read right. That Kobe, I forgot the number he went, but pretty much undefeated in the Olympics. And unfortunately, it's been a rough going, for the U.S. men's team, basketball team, that is, after getting, they were beaten by the Nigerian team, and now they've lost to France. Now, what I read was in the game that, Team USA had a 8-point lead with 4 minutes left in the game, but the French team went on a 16-2 run, and that run was highlighted by their leading scorer, Evan Fournier. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right. He's always I won't say always, but he's one of those guys' names I pronounce maybe right, maybe wrong, not sure. But you remember him playing with the Orlando Magic. I believe he was recently traded to the Boston Celtics, but he ended up hitting a go-ahead three-pointer with less than 1 minute left to seal the game for the French team. And look, it was the opening game for both teams, so it doesn't necessarily knock the USA's chances of getting a goal, but it does make them aware that they can be beat. They can be beat. And I'm reading here right now that, like I mentioned earlier, the Olympic men's team had a 25-game Olympic winning streak going back to 2004. So the last time they lost was to Argentina in the 2004 Summer Games in Athens. Now, looking at it, Team USA looks like they are the most successful nation in men's Olympic basketball. I do remember one year, I think it was LeBron, Melo, I want to say Richard Jefferson was on that team. I know they had a rough going in the Olympics. And look, it hasn't been great for the men's team. That's all I can say. They stumbled into the Olympics. They lost 2 of their exhibition games before Sunday's loss, and now they've lost 3 of their last 4. So my question is to you: what is wrong with Team USA? What's wrong with this squad? You hear that there are rumblings about the team beefing with Coach Popovich and players they don't really like playing for him. And look, let's be real. Coach Pop, I don't know how to say if he's a great coach, because ever since he lost Tim Duncan and Ginobili and Parker and Kawhi Leonard, he hasn't been that great at coaching his teams to wins. I believe did the Spurs make the playoffs this year? I don't believe they made the playoffs. This was his second year not making the playoffs. And I don't know, but those are the rumblings that are coming out that, the players and Coach Pop, they're not seeing eye to eye. And just from the things that I've read, it seems like, and this is just my observation, it seems that the games are being refed uh, differently from NBA games. Because I saw an article where Damian Lillard was saying that these guys are playing much different. The overseas guys are playing much different than when they play for their team here in the States. And he was speaking about Evan Fournier and Rudy Gobert. And Rudy Gobert is a guy that I think a lot of NBA players disrespect. I know Shaq disrespects him, but Rudy Gobert is a force down in the middle. He's a guy who's going to get you 10 and 10 a night with a couple blocks. And I think that a lot of guys in the NBA really just slight his game. And we saw the team USA paid for that, taking these guys for granted with the French team. But as I just said, I think the games are ref different when you're playing international ball. You don't get a lot of the ticky-tack fouls called like you would in an NBA game. The NBA game is catered toward its superstars. You get one little tap on the wrist and it's a foul called, just little ticky-tack fouls. And it seems like the refs and the international game aren't letting guys play. And a lot of these guys, it seems like they don't know how to play when it gets a little rough, out there. And this is what the NBA game used to be in the 80s and in the 90s. And, the league got rid of hand checking and they took the real tough defense out. You would think teams like the Bad Boys and how they were tackling Jordan in midair for that. They were a part of it. But, that's just my opinion, But I don't know. What do you think the problem is with Team USA basketball? Can they turn it around and still win the gold? So what's your opinion? What's your thoughts? Drop your comments below. Let me know what you think the problem is. And hopefully Team USA, they can solve whatever issue they have going on and still have a shot at winning the gold. All right, let's move on to this day in sports. On this day back in 1993, New York Mets pitcher Anthony Young wins, which ends his losing streak at 27 games. Can you imagine a pitcher losing 27 decisions in a row? Unheard of. Hey, look, guys, that's all I got for you today, folks. See, this is what happens when you're gone for a while. You try to get back into the routine. Forgive me. I'll get there. But hey, look, I thank you for including my podcast into your day. If you're listening on Spotify, follow the podcast. If you're on the YouTube side of things, go ahead and subscribe, comment, like, all that good stuff. Go to the social media links in the description box to get in contact with the show for any comments or suggestions. You've been listening to All Things Sports with Mike Davis. And remember, it's your world. I'm just giving my opinion. I'm out. Peace.
You're listening to All Things Sports with Mike Davis.